Well, hello everybody. We're in the final stretch of the 26 hours. And I'm sure some of you did not sleep during that time. And what a 26 hours it has been. I feel optimistic and energized listening to all of the great speakers. It was also great to see Angela Merkel just now on the video, as she is playing a leading role in Europe till the end of her tenure, to push for the Green Deal, to accelerate the transformation of an economy to a better one, and to champion a higher level of solidarity, not only in Europe, but across the globe. And in her own country, she even committed to phase out coal, put carbon pricing in place, and actually accelerate the badly needed change to the energy transition. Now, Germany, like many others, belonged to a group of countries led by women that simply seemed to do better during the crisis. I don't believe that's a coincidence. The same is actually true for the UN Global Compact, capably led by the first woman, which is Lise Kingo, as you all know. Now, hard to believe that it was already 5 years ago that Lise took the job. She had big shoes to fill at that time, following in the footsteps of Georg Kell and the start of the Sustainable Development Goals. But it is fair to say that Lise has more than risen to the challenge. Under her leadership, the organization has grown from strength to strength. With her unassuming, low-ego style that we're used to from the Danes, may I say, she has tirelessly worked to strengthen the impact of the United Nations Global Compact as an organization, but also by forcing the needed partnerships to get the bigger results. 14,000 organizations now belong to the Global Compact and growing, and it was about 8,000 when she started, so nearly double. 70 thriving local chapters, a challenging 2020 plan delivered, more focused strategy, changed structure, strengthened organization, and yes, a culture to back it up. And more importantly, a heightened commitment from its members, with now 85% taking action on the global goals and over 90% embedding the 10 principles. The implementation of the action platforms, the Global Impact Initiative, making global goals local business, the science-based targets and the 1.5 degree campaign, establishment of the academy, her work on women empowerment, more engaged local chapters, and many more. These will be all things that Lise will be remembered for, and that is what we need to celebrate. We really thank you, Lise, for the enormous impact that you had. But obviously, we also recognize that it's a team effort. So equal thanks to the wonderful team at the Global Compact, as well as Amina and her team, which have provided valuable support all along. But it's also good to quickly reflect on what Lise actually wants to remember us for. What is actually the best present that we can give her? Simply put, in my opinion, it is the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and doing it at the time frame required, 2030, not 2071. Recovery and building back better are the right themes, but speed and scale is missing right now. We're simply moving too slow. 700 million people still in extreme poverty and going up. 257 years to gender equality. We can't wait that long. On track for a 3.5 degree warming? Is that what we want? Listen, we have less than 4,000 days remaining until it's 2030. The SDG ambition was launched, and it needs all of us. To help, the UN Global Compact has created the Sdg Benchmark or Business Benchmarks, covering things like living wages, gender balance, 100% sustainable sourcing, staying below 1.5 degrees, zero bribery, zero waste, etc. It merits a look, it merits integrating in your business, it merits support from all of us. Business would be well off to support. It will make you more resilient, it would make you more profitable, and it certainly would make you more successful in today's world. But bold leadership is needed above all. Bold targets sometimes feel uncomfortable. But some of you have shown during the summit and have shared as well these bold initiatives. We just need to amplify and multiply. Now, COFAS also reminds us that we cannot have healthy people on an unhealthy planet. We now need to show that we collectively can create that more sustainable, equitable, and inclusive world we all aspire to, individually and collectively. We have learned the last 2 weeks that we can simply not be silent or impartial if basic human rights and values are violated, if racial divides tear us apart, nor can we stay silent if others are left behind. Let's use this moment to reconfirm our universal values of dignity and respect for all, equity, and yes, compassion. This is not only the end of the era of shareholders, I believe, or the beginning of shareholder capitalism or moral capitalism, but above all, it's the era of human capitalism. We are happiest when what we think, what we say, and what we do is in harmony. Actions speak louder than anything. Actions with the brain, but above all with the heart. After all, the word courage comes from the French word cœur, that stands for heart. I know that the task is enormous and it requires the best of all of us. The decade of action has started. We now need to harness the enormous energy and commitments from this summit to create the needed tipping points. Thank you, Lise, for all your contributions and the fun of working together, I must say. I enjoyed it, and I know the board did. Welcome, Sanda. Big shoes to fill, but I know you can. We certainly count on you, and you can count on our support. It is a journey that you don't have to walk alone. Over to Lise now. Lise, the word is yours. Thank you very much.
Dear Paul, dear Secretary General, dear Deputy Secretary General, dear members of the Global Compact Board, it has been a great honor and privilege to serve the United Nations during this pivotal moment in time. I stepped into this role when the 30 agenda was adopted. With our roadmap laid out, our task was to mobilize a global movement of businesses and stakeholders to create the world we want. As we took on this mission impossible, we never doubted your support in the Global Compact. It bolstered the confidence of the entire team and our community of businesses. We cannot thank you enough for that. Looking back, I'm proud of what we achieved together. In 5 years, we've seen a step change in sustainable leadership. Today, I can say with confidence that the business of business is sustainability. It is becoming the new normal. In 2015, sustainability was anchored with the CEOs among less than half of compact companies. Today, among the majority. We have seen forward-looking CEOs stepping up, leading the change when we needed them most. During COVID, for a 1.5-degree future, for the women empowerment principles, for the ocean, the list is long. What is, however, also clear is that we need more of everything. We need businesses to set bigger and bolder goals. We need much deeper integration of sustainability into corporate purpose, governance, and strategy. The 10 principles and the must inform every decision and action, big and small, in every part of business, all the way to the supply chain. We also need many more businesses to adopt this approach so it becomes the new normal. SDG Ambition is all about. With SDG Ambition, we offer a common framework for what ambition looks like and how to drive implementation. It can be used across sectors, geographies, business size, and together with our local networks across the world, we will now work with 1,000 businesses to build a solid reference. In the future, companies who wish to call themselves sustainable will use SDG Ambition as their benchmark. That's also why we are working to have our new communication on progress, requirements, and tools ready by 2021. Our aim is to strengthen transparency and accountability with a much more uniform approach for tracking progress, inspiring leadership, and fostering ambitious goal setting. I am, of course, acutely aware that many boards and senior management teams right now feel more than a little wary about taking on anything new in the current economic environment. In the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, Boston Consulting Group conducted a survey. It shows that 92% of mainstream investors would put economic recovery before ESG performance. But that's an entirely flawed logic. Economic and sustainable development are not opposites. Companies with higher ESG scores fare financially better during the COVID-19 crisis and will continue to do so as we set out to recover better. We have a unique window of opportunity to get back on track to deliver the SDGs and the Paris Climate Agreement. Trillions of dollars are being infused into economic recovery. The experience of COVID-19 is still fresh in our minds. Across the world need to redefine themselves in a new normal. We need more than strategy and process, though. It is fundamentally about leadership and people. Leaders on boards and in C-suites have a huge opportunity to make sustainability central to their organization's culture and leadership. Yet, only in 4% of C-suite and board appointments is sustainability experience or mindset a requirement. We know the qualifications and personal traits we should look for and cultivate in future leaders. As Paul stated when interviewed for the leadership white paper conducted by Russell Reynolds, a good leader is first and foremost a good person. The rest you can learn. Grim backdrop of COVID-19 and the obvious wrongs we see in the world today, I remain an optimist. What makes me full of confidence is the generational shift we see happening. A new generation of purpose-driven, creative leaders with no patience for "it can't be done" are now taking over where the boomer generation is leaving off. They choose their jobs with care. They only want to invest their talent, time, and money in creating a future that is sustainable. I've met them. They are our young SDG innovators and SDG pioneers. They are graduating from one of the more than 800 business schools that have signed up for the UN Principles on Responsible Management Education. Leaders exactly like Sanda or Ojiambo, who will bring the UN Global Compact initiative successfully into the future. With this next generation of leaders, I know it can be done. Bola Adesola, a very special thanks to you also for your wise counsel over the years. We have started an unstoppable revolution. And while I will be sad to leave this amazing initiative, rest assured, I will never stop being part of the moment. And now it's my great pleasure to hand over the baton to Sanda.
Thank you, Lise. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and business leaders. It's a great pleasure to join you all today for this historic gathering of the global community as we mark 20 years of the UN Global Compact, uniting business for a better world. Thank you, Chancellor Merkel, for your commitment to working together in partnership with the business community to drive strong, sustainable development outcomes. And thank you, Paul and Bola, for your leadership as co-chairs of the UN Global Compact Board, and for your inspiring and timely work in guiding the initiative to where it is today. This Leaders Summit has been an incredibly inspiring opportunity for me to engage, learn, and reflect on the incredible scope and diversity of work that the UN Global Compact Board is undertaking to support the global business community in advancing the goals and values of the United Nations through responsible business practices. As the largest ever UN convening of the global business community, it is powerful to see how many companies around the world are committed to partnering with others to drive meaningful progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. I am honored to have been appointed by the Secretary General as the next Executive Director of the UN Global Compact, and I look forward to building on the many successes of the past decades, as well as the important conversations that we have had over these past 2 days, as we look forward to the future. Over the past decade, working within business, I've been proud to work very closely with the UN Global Compact towards the vision of mobilizing a global movement of sustainable companies and stakeholders to create the world that we want. This was first in my home country, Kenya, through the Global Compact Network Kenya, and later through increasing engagement with the UN Global Compact headquarters in New York. I want to thank the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary General, and the entire UN Global Compact Board for their vision in guiding the work of the initiative. It is truly a great honor to stand here today to take over the mantle from Lise Kingo, who I congratulate for her exemplary leadership that has transformed the Compact into a stronger, more results-focused organization with a broad-based group of business participants and a strong vision for the future. Lise, thank you for your immense contribution in mainstreaming responsible business action for all companies around the world. And as we look ahead, I am keen to ensure that the value proposition of the Compact remains strong and future-oriented. It is not lost on me that 20 years ago, at the founding of the UN Global Compact, former Secretary General Kofi Annan singled out the important benefits that could stem from the UN increasingly viewing business as a potential force for good. And today, we are at a very defining moment for business. By leveraging private sector's market-driven solutions and resources, companies participating in the Compact have continued to provide innovation, technology, scale, and impact. As we look to 2030, UN Global Compact participants are well placed to continue to transform the role of business in contributing to the global sustainable development agenda. And as we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has created an unprecedented global crisis. Let us not forget that climate change and growing inequalities continue to shake the very foundations of business and of humanity. And this is where the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals provide a strong pathway for business. Now, more than ever, business can and should play a central role in societal transformation. The business of business is no longer just business. There are significant challenges that define our worlds today: declining trust, growing inequalities, fragile trade networks, and broken supply chains, weakening international cooperation, and diminished social cohesion. Each of these challenges presents an immense opportunity for business to reinvent. Therein also lies the opportunity for stronger partnerships. In my view, more and less or. UN and business, government and business, business and civil society, principles, purpose, and profit, as Paul Polman said. In addition to marking the 20th anniversary of the UN Global Compact, this year also marks the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. This comes at a time of great disruption for the world, serving as a stark reminder that international cooperation across borders, sectors, and generations must adapt to these changing times. It is now our generation's opportunity to learn from the lessons of the past, realign behind the mission of the United Nations, and steer our world onto a more sustainable, equitable, and inclusive path. I look forward to consolidating on the gains made in the current global strategy, which Lise ably led, which ends in 2020. I also look forward to advancing the commitments to the newly launched Global Impact Initiatives, which are the SDG Ambition, Target Gender Equality, Ambition 1.5 Degrees, and the Young SDG Innovators Program. These initiatives will continue to provide strong platforms for our local networks to work with companies on the ground to drive impact at scale. I very much look forward to working with the talented UN Global Compact team in New York and around the world in continuing this work. Going forward, it will be essential to continuing to strengthen the Global Compact local networks as key pillars of the initiative, and to continue to build mutually reinforcing partnerships with governments, the UN, and other key stakeholders. I see a number of areas where there are opportunities to continue to build on the work of the initiative. First, I look forward to leading the development of a new robust strategy that will enhance the work of the Compact, translating its work based on priorities of the Decade of Action, including the urgent challenges of climate change and inequality. Second, I am committed to continue to grow the participant base of the UN Global Compact, and also to include more medium and small enterprises that reflect the business makeup of many economies around the world. And they will work in tandem with the existing strong and successful membership and contribution of multinationals and large businesses. Third, I plan to expand on the leadership and guidance already set down on best business practice to enable the Compact to demonstrate key metrics in terms of principle-based outcomes, business action, technical reporting, and the practical implementation of transformative business initiatives. The forthcoming update of the annual Communication on Progress, as Lise mentioned, will be a critical component of this work. And Lise, I look forward to carrying on and seeing this project to fruition. Lastly, recognizing that business cannot do this alone, I look forward to working with governments around the world to better highlight the many ways that companies are working together with other stakeholders to advance the 2030 agenda. Together, we can bring these visions to reality and scale the size and the ambition of the global corporate sustainability movement over the coming years. And as I conclude, I look forward to working with you all to fulfill the vision that Kofi Annan set out for business 20 years ago, and to drive forward the very concerted efforts to achieve the vision of Secretary General Guterres in this decade of action. Let us remember that at the end of the day, we are all united in building a better world. And now, to close out the 20th anniversary of the UN Global Compact Leaders Summit, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce Her Excellency Amina Mohammad, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanda. And as we always say here, no excellencies, just acronyms. But thank you so much for your kind words. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, business leaders, it's a real pleasure to join with you all today as we close out what has been the UN's largest, most inclusive, and most sustainable convening of the global business community. That whole family came together as we mark 20 years of the UN Global Compact, uniting business for a better world. It's powerful to see and inspiring to see how many purpose-driven business leaders stepped up to tackling societal issues and advancing the SDGs. As I went through the agenda, what an amazing collection of voices and leadership that we had to engage with. For the past 26 hours, as Paul has said, we've heard from leading voices representing business, government, the UN, young people, civil society, academia, and more than 20,000 of you from over 180 countries. This is amazing, have joined us for this historic event, demonstrating the truly global and multi-stakeholder nature of our community. I'm particularly encouraged that more than 20 UN partners hosted their own virtual pavilions during the summit. And this highlights the many ways the UN system, the UN family in itself, is engaging with the private sector every day. And that has been thanks to the leadership of Lise in urging us all to come together and to see the interconnectedness and the response that the UN system can have for business. Let me take a few moments to reflect on the many exciting announcements and conversations that we've heard and seen at this historic summit. the launch of the Sdg Business Benchmarks through the Sdg Ambition Initiative, we heard about the opportunity to genuinely transform the way companies gauge whether corporate activities are aiming at the necessary level of ambition to deliver on the SDGs. And that's always been the watchword for Paul and for Bola when they've led the Global Compact in pushing that ambition, stretching us, as Paul often says, those tipping points that we have to get over to get to the next level. When it comes to the leadership on the Decade of Action, we discussed what can be learned from business leaders who are integrating sustainability across strategy, operations, and stakeholder engagement, and what it means for how boards and C-suite leaders are selected. We had insights into the COVID crisis, using that as an opportunity to leapfrog many of the challenges, especially as we go digital. The UN Global Compact's 20th anniversary progress reports, the findings provided a wealth of information into where companies are currently prioritizing their efforts, showing clearly they're all engaging, but that we still need to be more ambitious in trying to look at the scale and meeting the aspirations of the 2030 agenda. We saw businesses announce support for key UN Global Compact programs such as the Target Gender Equality, which supports companies in their journey to achieve gender balance. There was also no issue or area left untouched, with diverse sessions that really took our leading experts from around the world, covering topics that we really saw the need for foundational human rights due diligence, the role of bribery prevention and detection, the importance of ambitious science-based corporate climate action, and the need to shift from crisis management to long-term recovery. The summit also illustrated the critical role that the local Global Compact networks play in advancing responsible business action at a regional and country level. And here we must underscore, without these global networks, the SDGs will not be achieved. I'm especially encouraged by the discussions we saw around the world, focused on how we can rebuild more inclusive economies and societies that are set on a new course for a socially just, a low carbon and climate resilient world, whereas we always say, no one, absolutely no one's left behind. Today, however, we are living in surreal times, in a moment of immense crisis and uncertainty, a crisis with a human face. With COVID, we face a global health, humanitarian, and development emergency with no parallel in UN's 75-year history. Millions of lives and livelihoods and decades of development progress are all under threat. The crisis has laid bare massive fragilities and deficits that define our world today, from staggering levels of poverty and inequalities to the persistent norms and practices that underpin gender inequality, to a weakening of international cooperation and the trust in institutions. The seeds for further social and political unrest are being sown, and we are already seeing COVID-19's unequal impacts intertwine with long-standing injustices, including racism. As we see protests fill the streets and squares around the world, there really is an urgent need for leadership in recognizing and pushing back against systemic racism and police brutality everywhere. This is where all business leaders can speak up and use your influence. There are many steps that you can take to reject racism and all injustices. First, by being the first to review your own company positions, adopting stronger policies, investments, and actions that tackle these inequalities and racism. Providing training on racial justice and discrimination, investing in people of color and other marginalized communities through education, internships, and employment, helping to ensure that your employees, customers, and networks engage with accurate fact-based information, including the new UN's Verified initiative. And join us on June the 30th in asking everyone to pause before sharing questionable content on social media platforms. To me personally, it doesn't seem very long ago that we were engaging with the Me Too initiative. And that Me Too unveiled all sorts of incredibly tragic realities in our society between us as human beings. And this is yet another instance where perhaps for too long we've really kept too quiet. Let us understand that diversity is a strength. It's not a weakness. To pave the way towards real change, all of our society must work together to strengthen social protection systems, eliminate all forms of discrimination, and provide equal opportunities. Our social cohesion is a strong safety net for times like these. These crises can be the wake-up call the world desperately needs, the spark that ignites inclusive and sustainable recovery, kickstarting our decade of action. And I applaud all of you who are already active participants, and I'm encouraging those of you who are new to this incredible community to join us. More than ever, we will need all companies to further integrate the 10 principles into their business models and raise ambition across operations, supply chains, investments, and public policies. I know you will demonstrate your leadership by setting goals that are aligned with these global benchmarks. Your role as champions for these efforts will be critical in mainstreaming these SDG ambitions for companies everywhere. And we've heard that over and over again in the last 26 hours on how you are engaging. Here, I also want to emphasize the important role that women and young people are playing and will continue to play in driving forward these transformations, and particularly at the local level. We know that gender equality must be understood and prioritized like the economic and business imperative it is. Financially, it makes total business sense. This extraordinary summit, it inspired all of us to reach I would say, not the stars, but beyond the stars. It has renewed our energy and our vision for a world where our humanity on this incredible planet should be at the core of our investments, at the core of our attention. In conclusion, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to deeply appreciate my sister and friend, Lise Kingo, for her immense contributions to leading the Global Compact for the past 5 years, and for broadening its contribution to the realization of the SDGs. Your leadership, Lisa, has been one that has inspired everyone. You've always had the passion to make sure that everyone, everywhere, is part of your journey, part of the journey to achieve business at the center of the SDGs. So thank you. As the Compact enters its next phase, I look forward to working closely with my new sister and friend, Sanda Ojiambo, to build on the many successes of the past 20 years to take the community of the Global Compact to even greater heights. It is still possible to achieve the SDGs by 2030, eradicating poverty, reducing global inequalities, empowering young people and women everywhere, shifting the world onto a 1.5 degree Celsius trajectory. And this, again, I will continue to say, must be done at the local level. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bola. Thank you, Lise, and the team, the incredible team that you have. When I see what you produce, you can see what you can do with so few, let me say. It feels like it's a huge global compact because of our networks, but the team are amazing. And then thank you to all and each and every one for joining us at this 26-hour event. It would not have been successful if not for you. Everyone that has participated has made this a success to remember. Let us leave this space in the knowledge that we are committed to being united in the business of a better world. Thank you, everyone.